Hello and welcome to this lesson about adding and subtracting mixed numbers but with visual aids. So what we're going to do is relook at how to do adding and subtracting of mixed numbers, but we're going to draw pictures to help us visualize what's going on. So first of all, we have to remember the main rule when it comes to adding and subtracting fractions. You have to have common denominators. Common denominators. So that doesn't change. Now, for most of the examples I'll do, we're going to start off with common denominators, but then at the very end, I'll show you one where you don't have a common denominator. And then I also want to talk about what does it mean when, or what I mean when we're talking about mixed numbers visually. Well, let's look at something like 2.5, a fairly simple mixed number. What we're going to do to make this more visually appealing so we can see what 2.5 is, I'm going to use some rectangles or squares. And I'm going to have two of them that are going to be completely filled in, and then I'm going to have a third one that's only halfway full. And I think if we approach it like this, it's going to be easier for us to add and subtract 2.5 with other numbers. So let's take a look at some examples. Let's say we have 4 1/3 plus 1 1/3. Well, 4 is going to be 4 of these squares that are all completely colored in. And then the 1/3 is going to be just so there's a square that's broken into 3 parts, but only one of them is full. So that's 4 1/3. Now, 1 1/3 is one square that's completely colored in, and then we'll have another square that's broken into 3 sections, and only a third of it is broken in, or colored in. So now what we're going to do is combine them. And so we're going to add these together. And so I'm going to start by counting all the whole components that I have. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my whole number is 5. Now I have to look at my fractions. And I'm going to realize that I have, both of these are in thirds. So thirds. And so I'm just going to count how many thirds I have. I have 1/3, and I have a second third for a grand total of 2 thirds. And so I think if we use these visual aids, it'll make it more apparent what it is we're doing, like how we're combining our whole numbers and then how we're combining our fractions. Let's do another example. So this time we have 5 4/5, so I'm going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares. Shade them in to show that they are whole numbers. But then I'm going to need a fifth or a sixth one, and I have to break it into 5 parts, so that's going to be a little harder to do. So let's see, 3, 4, 5. All right, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4 of those shaded. And then I'm going to subtract 2 2/5. So 2 2/5, I'll have 2 squares, 1, 2, and then I'll have the fraction one, which again is broken into fifths, so 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 of them are shaded in. Now notice I am doing subtraction, so I'm going to be taking away. So a better way to look at it is like this box is going to cancel out with that box, or this green box is going to cancel out that blue box. And so that's leaving me with a total of 3 of them. So I have 3. And now I look at the fraction component, and I got to remember I'm dealing with fifths here because both of the fractions have a 5 in the denominator. And I'm doing the same thing. I have 1/5 here that's going to cancel out with 1/5 there, another fifth here that's canceling out with another one there, and it's leaving me with a total of 2 fifths. So hopefully you're starting to see how this works. Again, I'm starting off with the most basic examples so we kind of get the visual aids, because these visual aids will really help us when we either have to borrow or we go beyond one. We have to do what's called regrouping. And so that's what this is now an example of, is where we have to regroup. So 3 3/5, I have my 3 whole pieces. And then I'll have my fraction component, again, broken into fifths. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I have 3 of those being filled in, plus my 2 3/5, so 1, 2, color those. The fraction component, 2, 3, 4, 5. Got to color in 3 of them. And now I go to do my adding. Well, I have 3 and 2, and so I'll combine those, and that will give me 5. And now when I look at my fifths here, my denominator is still going to be in 5, but I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. So I'll put a 6 there. Now this is a problem. I can't have 6 because that doesn't make sense to have a mixed number and an improper fraction at the same time. But if I were maybe to take a couple of these, so if I were to take like this one, put it there, and that one, put it there, I would then have a whole number. And so that gives me another full, complete or square. So what I can do is instead of saying 5, I now have 6, and then this one is the one remaining one that will be 1/5. So I can box that and put it away. Okay, let's do another example where we look at subtraction. So here we have 2 1/5, so I have my 2 whole numbers. Then for the fraction, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I have 1/5. And then I'm going to subtract my 1 3/5, so there's my 1, and then my 3/5, so 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. Now here's where we run into a problem. I only have 1/5 right here, but I got to take away 3 over here. So what I need to do is I need to take one of my whole numbers and I need to crack it open. So what I'm going to do is rewrite this as fifths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And all of them are colored in. So I have 5/5 right here plus an additional fifth there. Oops, fifth. For a grand total of, when I look at just these pieces, 6/5. Now I can take away my 1, 2, 3/5, and that's going to leave me with 3/5. Then I could also, so now this has been taken out of the expression, if you will, and I have to look at this minus that. Well, they cancel each other out, and all I'm left with is 3/5. So now let's take a look at an example where we don't have a common denominator. This tactic of using visual aids will come in really handy for us. So for 3 2/3, let's go with 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to color that in, color that in, color that in. And then for our fraction piece, we have it in thirds. We'll color in 2 of those thirds. 1 1/2, so 1, color it in, and now 1/2. Now here's the thing, we can add the whole numbers together, that's easy enough. So we have 3 plus 1, so our whole number will be 4, but for the fraction component, these don't make sense yet. So what we have to do is find a common denominator for 3 and 2. And what that would be is 6. And so what we can now do is maybe redraw our fractions, and I'm going to make the box or the square a rectangle so I have a little more room to work with. All right, so that should be in 6. And so 1/2 to 6 is going to be 3/6. So 1, 2, 3. And then my 2/3 as 6 will become 4/6. Oops, that's 5. There we go. So now what I can do is count up my 6's. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now I'm going past it, so I'll have, when I combine these, I get 7/6. So what I can do is realize I have 6 right here, which makes another whole 1. So I'm going to get 5. And then what I'm left with is that lonely 1/6. And so the visual aids really help us see how many whole numbers we have, how many fractions we have, and how, especially it comes in really handy if we need to borrow, like we had to do over here. If we needed to take one of our whole numbers and turn it into another fraction. Or if we go past a whole or a fraction and we need to split it into two pieces where we have the whole number and then that remaining part of the fraction. So hopefully this video has helped kind of you visualize how you add and subtract mixed numbers. Good luck with your homework or practice, and let me know if you have any questions.